listening to Combat Sports UK.
Combat Sports UK.
UFC 312 in Sydney, Australia. Dan is here as always, and we are going to give our picks, which are always 100% right, of course. We're going to kick off with the main card opener between Jake Matthews and Francisco Prado. What a fight this is, a really good fight. Does it belong on the main card? This might be something we say quite a lot. Does it belong on the main card of a pay-per-view? I don't think so, but it's a banging fight nonetheless. For Aussie Jake Matthews, last year marked a decade tenure in the UFC for him. He is a veteran of this game. Some good wins, some good losses in there. His opponent Prado coming off a loss in a fight of the night in February. A really good fight it was. It was against Zell Huber, actually. Zell Huber, 2 fight of the nights last year at UFC 306. He had one as well. It was Prado's second career loss. This is a really good fight. Dan, who are you going for?
Francisco Prado's he's 12-2, I believe his record is. Like I said, coming off that second career defeat, but it was a great fight. Like I said, Prado is always in good fights, so I think he can definitely make it competitive. But I have gone for Jake Matthews in front of his home fans, picking up the win. A
good start for the Aussies if it goes your way, Dan. I'm going for a bad start for the Aussies. I think Jake Matthews gets KO'd in round 3 after an unbelievable fight. I think this could be fight of the night. I think it's right up there, but I think after a back and forth, I think Prado gets the knockout. He silenced the Sydney crowd after a great fight, so it might not silence them too much because they'll be impressed with what they've seen, even though their man has just got knocked out. Moving on then to another Aussie, Jimmy Crute taking on Rodolfo Bellato in the light heavyweight division. Experienced Jimmy Crute, he's becoming a veteran in the lightweight division. He's had a tough time since 2020. He's lost 3 fights, 1 draw, but he is becoming a staple in these Australian cards. He's taking on Contender Series graduate and former LFA light heavyweight champion Bellato. Trains a lot with Coach Cruz and Alex Pereira. Obviously, he is a Brazilian man himself, a big heavy Brazilian, so you better believe that he has done a lot of hard rounds with Potan himself. Very, very good fighter. I think it's going to be a bad start for the Aussies. I think they're going 0-2 with the first 2 fights on the main card. These 2 fighters have very different momentum at the minute. It is a step up in opposition for Bellato. Jimmy Crute is very experienced in front of his home fans. He'll be doing whatever he can to ensure that he doesn't get finished and that he doesn't get beat, and he's very, very durable, so he'll be right in there to the end. But I think no matter where this fight goes, I think Bellato has just got the upper hand, and I think he gets a decision win against Australian Jimmy Crute. Let's hear it.
I think, like I said, I've started the night off well with the Aussies, but unfortunately, I think it does take a turn for the worse in this fight. I think Jimmy Crute is, like you said, he's vastly experienced. He's got plenty of UFC experience, but I think it's all been ups and downs. I think for Jimmy Crute, it has been a little bit of like a yo-yo career. It would be amazing if this is the moment it all turns around. Imagine he picks up a stellar victory here right in front of his home fans. Unfortunately, I don't see that happening here. And I think I completely agree with what you're saying. I think Rodolfo Bellato training with Alex Poatan Pereira, I think that can only make you one thing, and that is very, very good at striking. So I think for Bellato, he's going to catch him. I think, unfortunately, Jimmy Crute does get finished. I've got the second round here is my pick for Bellato to get a knockout over the hometown favourite, I'm afraid.
Looks like it's going to be a hard one for Jimmy Crute. Moving on then to another fan favourite Aussie, Justin Tafa taking on Tallison Teixeira. 2 heavyweights going at it. Teixeira making his UFC debut at Dana White's Contender Series Season 8. He was the heavyweight that came away with the most hype, the most impressive heavyweight. I thought he's 6'7". He is fucking huge. This guy is massive, especially and even for the heavyweight division. But this is a step up in competition for him. Tafa will be on a mission to impress the home crowd here. Usually we see Tai Tuivasa in these main cards at Australia. They do a Shuyi. I think Tafa, if he gets the win, he's going to take over that Shuyi role and do it instead. Who have you got for this one, Dan?
Start the main card off well for the Aussies. Unfortunately, took a little bit of a turn for the worse. We're bringing it back around with a sensational Tafa knockout in round 1. Let's crush this 7-0 prospect. He might be 6'7", but hey, look, if Tafa starts working that body, that 6'7" frame might start crumbling. So I think for Justin Tafa, look, it's you or him. It always will be. Justin Tafa is one of them, but the best bangers out there. So I think he's going to be well up for this one. Like I said, in front of the home fans, we want to see something right before we get into those title fights. Let's knock out this 7-0, 6'7" prospect, and let's get shoeies going all around the arenas. Yeah, I've got Justin Tafa round 1 KO. That may be the speaking over the head. But hey, look, that's what we're here for.
I've gone for the head. I've gone for Teixeira round 1 KO. Just looking at the difference in these two, there's 7 inches between them. Like, yes, Tafa is a heavyweight, but he's only 6 foot, taking on 6'7" Teixeira. I think Teixeira's leg kicks are unbelievably good as well. I think they'll be able to use them to really stop Tafa from coming forward, because Tafa can't fight at range here. It's impossible for him to fight at range. He has to get inside the range of Teixeira. But I think he manages to keep him at bay using leg kicks. I think he maybe backs him up against the cage and starts teeing off on him with them long limbs that he has. He's very powerful too. I think once he hurts Tafa, his durability isn't brilliant. I think he will be able to finish him after landing some good strikes in the first round. So I'm going for a round 1 Teixeira finish. You're going for a round 1 Tafa finish. So it's going to be an interesting one. Moving on to the first title fight on this card. It's the women's strawweight title. Tatiana Suarez taking on the ever so dominant Zhang Weili. Strawweight title. This is Zhang Weili's second term as UFC champion, and she's been very, very dominant. If your name isn't Rose, you haven't beat Zhang Weili. That's how dominant she's been. She's taken on former Ultimate Fighter winner and undefeated Tatiana Suarez. I'll kick us off with my pick for this one. I think Tatiana Suarez gets it done. I think she gets it done via decision in a very, very close fight. I think this is up there for fight of the night. For me, it's all about Tatiana Suarez's journey to this point so far. Her fighting's unbelievable, and I'll look at how they match up stylistically in a minute, but just the story that she's had. She was diagnosed with cancer whenever she was younger and managed to get over that. So she won the Ultimate Fighter, worked her way up to the title in the UFC strawweight division. In 2019, she was ready to get a title fight. She had a career-threatening neck injury which sidelined her for 4 years. She comes back in 2023 in August, and she fights Jessica Andrade, gets a really good win there. And she's been out again due to a knee injury. And now this is her coming back and finally getting that title shot that she has long awaited for, that she has come over so many hurdles for. And I think this is another hurdle that she is going to get over. I think she beats Zhang Weili. On the fight, it's interesting. I think if it was just an all-out striking fight, I think Zhang Weili is in with a good shot of winning. Tatiana Suarez does have good kicks, but where she does her best work is in the grappling side of things. Her wrestling, her judo is out of this world. One of the best in all of the women's divisions, in my opinion. Very, very good at getting the takedowns up against the cage. And I think that's what she does. And she's strong enough as well to hold Zhang Weili down. Zhang Weili's been so dominant, and it is really, really hard to pick against her. And it's not a pick that I'm massively confident about, but I just think, looking at it stylistically, I think this is Zhang Weili's toughest fight yet, for sure. So I'm going for Tatiana Suarez to get the nod. Maybe 3 rounds to 2, 4 rounds to 1. I think it will be a unanimous decision. I don't think it'll be that close that it'll be split, but I just think Tatiana Suarez is going to be too good on the night, and she's came over too many hurdles to lose at this stage. Who are you going for, Dan?
They're very solid pick and very solid argument there for Suarez. Like I said, I think it's the concern with Suarez, even though, look, you look at that record, 10-0, and she's mightily impressive. The inactivity is always going to be a concern. But for Tatiana Suarez, she's always been inactive. Like you said, these long-term injuries have always kept her out. She's never been one that she's, like I said, there's plenty of fighters that will fight 3 times a year, 2 times a year, and then have a year out and then come back in after, say, a loss. That can be concerning because, they are used to fighting regularly. For Tatiana Suarez, she's never been someone that's been 2, 3, 4 fights a year. The ring rust that everyone sort of talks about when there's inactivity involved, I don't know whether that does come into play for Suarez because, like I said, when we saw last time out against Andrade, she was mightily impressive. Now, for Suarez, she's always been that name outside, like I said, purely outside of the UFC. She was still in the UFC, just obviously the injury was sidelined her for quite some time. But she was always a name that everyone was thinking about when she comes back, is this belt hers? And I think we may not be alone when we are picking Tatiana Suarez to beat Zhang Weili at UFC 312, because I also do think it does happen. Now, for Zhang Weili, there is a time and there is a place that she does get beaten by someone not named Rose Namajunas. I think that is at UFC 312. I think she does beat Zhang Weili this weekend, and I think it is decisive. I think she does get a submission win. but I think it is late. I think it is your championship rounds. I'm going to go for round 4. I think Zhang Weili's going to have her moments. They're not too bad.
Zhang Weili coming in as a favourite, 80-13. Tatiana Suarez, 75. That's a nice price for her, but the odds are close enough there, to be fair. Even the bookies know how tight this fight's going to be, but
exactly,
it's going to be an interesting one. It would be nice to see a title change hands. Titles have been staying with the same champions for the past while, so it would be nice to see one change hands there. Moving on then to Dricus Du Plessis taking on Sean Strickland, the rematch. I'll let you kick us off with this one then.
Dricus Du Plessis is a man I've picked against on so many occasions, and I think his last 5 fights, I think I picked against him 4 times. The one time I did not pick against Dricus Du Plessis was at UFC 297 when he fought Sean Strickland, because I do believe he's better than Sean Strickland, and I'm not going to change that opinion. Dricus Du Plessis has got better than the last time I picked him. Again, I may have picked Adesanya to beat him back at UFC 305. That may have been Adesanya fan talking, but like you said, we move from there. This here is easy work for Dricus Du Plessis. He's been so impressive since joining this UFC, and his tenure has been elite. Like I said, that Till win, the win against Robert Whittaker. Now, we all used to say no one does that to Robert Whittaker. Obviously, no one does unless you're Dricus Du Plessis or now Khamzat Chimaev. I reckon you're looking at quite an early one. I think round 2 submission for Dricus Du Plessis. He retains that belt and calls out Khamzat Chimaev for a great fight in the summer.
What a fight that will be. Just kind of ruined it by saying will, haven't I? I've gone for Dricus Du Plessis as well. I think, as you said, I always picked against Dricus Du Plessis. He reminds me of one of the old style UFC fighters, back in the day, where they're not really they're not great at anything. But when they put it all together, they're so awkward. They're so out of rhythm. It's unreal. But it works. No one can figure it out. When you start looking at his record now and his title defenses, he had Strickland and Adesanya on the way up to the title. Robert Whittaker, that great one against Darren Till, Bronson in there as well. These are all top level fighters, and he's beat them all. And I think he does it again here against Strickland. I don't think Strickland's been active enough since their first fight, to be honest. I think Strickland, it was a very close fight, and I actually picked Strickland as the winner. I thought he won it 3 rounds to 2. Yeah. Just thinking back to my memory from it, I haven't rewatched it yet, but I did pick Strickland as the winner. But it wasn't a robbery. It was a very, very close fight. Could have went either way, but I think it's more decisive this time. I can hardly speak. More decisive this time, and I think DDP actually gets a late sub. I think they're going to go back and forth, and it will be quite similar in the fact that the rounds are close. Strickland's going to have the same style that he did before, but I think DDP will have worked out. I think he'll mix in a bit more the iCarly picture to it. I think DDP whips in a bit more grappling than he did before, and I think he gets the submission, maybe takes the back, similar to what he done against Adesanya, because he will realise that this is a way to beat strikers, is take them down. He'll realise that he's good enough on the ground to do that after beating Adesanya in such a way. So I think he does the same against Strickland. I think they have a back and forth maybe for 4 or 5 rounds. I don't think it'll be the most entertaining in typical Sean Strickland fashion. I think they'll just be trying to work each other out, and then DDP gets a late takedown and going to go round 5 and gets the submission to retain his middleweight title. DDP's a weird one, man, isn't it? He's a strange fighter. He's so hard to figure out. And he keeps getting better and better. That's the other thing as well. He's
got that mindset. He's in that championship mindset now. And everyone always says you get that belt 30% better. I think Dricus Du Plessis is another shining example of that. Sean Strickland, I just don't think he's good enough to to take the belt from Du Plessis.
He just hasn't been active enough, in my opinion. Sean Strickland, before he got a smell of the title, was so active. He was fighting 3 times a year. I think, just looking at his record here, 2023 he fought 3 times, 2022 he fought 3 times, 2021 he fought 3 times. And then he touched the title, and it's like, I'm not fighting until I get that rematch. And I think he should have been polishing up his skills, because he's going to need to bring the best version of himself to beat Dricus Du Plessis. Because Dricus Du Plessis, he had the fight with Adesanya. I can see Dricus Du Plessis improving from the first fight, whereas Sean Strickland, I don't know what else he can add to his game to really improve. Yeah. Which is the thing, because we are so used to seeing this same style from him. Also, the other thing is, you have to ask yourself who can adapt more after spending 25 minutes in the cage together. Who is more likely to adapt their game? They win more decisively. And I think the answer to that is Dricus Du Plessis. So
Yeah.
it's going to be an interesting fight for sure. And that rounds up our UFC 312 picks. Make sure if you haven't checked out our other videos of sleeper fights and bonus predictions, go and check them out on the Combat Sports UK YouTube channel as well. Thank you very much for joining me, Dan. I hope you enjoy the fights this weekend, and we will see you in the next video.